Hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Diane. This is Pooh Bear. And I read 4 books in the month of November for Nonfiction November, which I didn't even really bother to look and see if it was a formal event hosted by anyone on BookTube. But since it's been such a great event in the past, I continued with it on my own. So I'm going to talk about just 2 of those books in this video, and I'm sort of planning a 2-part, and hopefully I'll be back in a week or 2 to talk about the other 2 books that I read for Nonfiction November. So today, in this video, I want to talk about the sort of science-y natural history ones that I read. So the first of those has a long title, A Woman Among Wolves, My Journey Through 40 Years of Wolf Recovery by Diane K. Boyd. And then one that I have physical copy of, Fungipedia, by Lawrence Millman. And I just realized since I'm filming this on my phone, the words are going to be backwards. Oh well. Anyway, I'll talk about the wolf one first. So A Woman Among Wolves, it's a memoir of a scientist who has been one of the leading scientists in the recovery of wolf populations in the lower 48 of the United States. And as it says in the title, her career spans 40 plus years. I think she's still going and working on wolf recovery. And the book is sort of organized basically as it's almost like a collection of stories. It's like all these stories about her time as a wolf scientist and her interactions with the wolves themselves and her interactions with fellow researchers and with the public and with some, state and federal agencies. So each of the stories is really great. Like she has a really wonderful, down to earth, sort of clear voice, I think, for presenting issues in wolf conservation and how the science has evolved clearly and succinctly. And the stories are sort of organized, I would say pretty loosely in almost like thematic chapters. Like she'll have a sort of a chapter that's focused on like one of the wolves that was part of the super early recovery efforts. And so it'll be a lot of stories about that wolf and her descendants. And then she'll have a chapter that's about sort of public opposition. And so it'll be stories about that. And Pooh Bear has realized that I'm not paying attention to him. So there he goes. That was a cool, like that structure worked. Like it was nice to have those, sort of the stories, but just from the title, 40 years of wolf recovery, I was expecting more of like kind of the standard memoir format of having just more about the timeline. And so it was pretty non-linear. There's a little bit of a timeline going from sort of beginning of wolf recovery to end for sure. But other than that, there wasn't much of sort of that chronological structure that you might expect from the title of the book. And we also don't hear much about herself, which, I think is fine. It really was a story more so about the wolves and about wolf recovery than it really was about Diane Boyd, the person, which I was totally fine with because that's often how we sort of think about science is we're trying to really focus on the natural world. But also coming into a memoir, I also kind of wanted to know a little bit more about who she was. Some of the stories are really interesting because I'm not a large mammal scientist myself. I'm an insect scientist. And when you're studying animals, there's often there's ethical decisions that need to be made. And so especially for something like studying a wolf, it's like the only way to actually get direct data on wolves is to be able to track them somehow. And so a lot of her work was trapping wolves, and they use non-lethal leg hold traps that for the most part don't injure the wolves. And so they can put radio collars on them and things like that. And of course, modern technology is making things even less intrusive for the wolves than it was in the early days in the 60s and 70s when she was getting 70s, I guess, when she was really getting her career off to a start. But there are a few stories in the book that are a little bit hard to read because accidents happen when you're doing scientific research. And so there were rare instances where the scientific methods did cause harm to individual wolves. And so I think that's something that everyone needs to wrestle with and might be hard to read if you go into this book expecting like a very hands-off approach or an approach that really that really has no chance of harming wolves. That's not this book. And she is kind of careful to clarify throughout, although she doesn't go into a lot of detail, the overall positive impact. And I think that is sort of told through the numbers in terms of the recovery of wolf populations in the United States, that we went from them being an endangered species, sort of barely hanging on, to having robust wolf populations in several states in the Intermountain West and in like the Great Lakes region. So it's overall, like, it's been an immense success, and the data that she collected and her collaborators collected that was tracking how wolves use their habitats and how far they migrate and what are the true territories of packs and things like that, were really impactful, I think, for planning for the recovery of wolves and advocating for it. So so I found this a really impactful, fascinating read, and it was easy to just kind of whip through it. So that was my first sciencey nonfiction book. So then I read Fungipedia by Lawrence Millman, and it was illustrated by Amy Jean Porter. And it's not heavily illustrated, but there are beautiful illustrations throughout. Like, we've got this in the end papers. These are spore prints, so it's like a flattened mushroom, so you can see the gills, and then there are just lovely black and white illustrations for some of the species in this book. So I really liked this one of a stinkhorn mushroom that is one of the examples that has a really developed veil that kind of hangs down below the top of the mushroom. So I really liked some of the illustrations in this book. This book is interesting. I mean, it's kind of given away in the title, Pedia. This is really set up as an encyclopedia. There's entries. Like, here's an entry for corn smut and well, I know it's backwards, sorry, but it's entries for like either super popular or famous mushroom names or particular terms that are related to fungi. Like there's an entry on medicinal mushrooms, and then there are entries on some of the sort of famous mycologists, fungus scientists, or fungus lovers. So it's definitely the sort of thing I think you would want to kind of dip in and out. I had, even with the name Fungipedia, I had somehow expected like a little bit more of a narrative, that I would get more, stories about mushrooms and fungus or something like that. So it's not that book. But I did like in the afterword, the author just has a nice reminder that I got to at the very end of the book about the goal of the book. He says the goal has been to provide the reader with a basic window on fungi, and in doing so, inspire that reader to gaze on all fungi, even the nasty ones, in wonder. And so I think the book is really great for that, as I said, to kind of dip in and out and become familiar with some key groups of fungus, some key characteristics of different types of fungus, some key people, things like that. I think for someone like me who already is really curious about fungi and has read other books about them, this just fell a little flat, just because I'm kind of beyond that stage of getting the super basic window into fungi and being inspired to wonder more about them. I already have the wonder more about them. So this was, a lovely book. Just wasn't exactly what I was looking for at this time, which is a me problem. It was funny. The writing is very good. Like, the entries do a really great job of providing some information, but there's often some humor in them, and it wasn't like hit the reader over the head with the humor, right? It was kind of subtle and just well done. So this was easy to read. All right, those are my first two books for Nonfiction November, and hopefully I'll be back soon with the other two books that I read. Thanks. Bye.